Alright, g'day, welcome back. This is another video of trying to improve at chess. If you were watching yesterday, you'd see that I was doing some tactics and some of the positions that arose were objectively better. You know, I got the tactic correct. But then the question is, in that position where you are objectively better, can you convert the victory? Can you convert the advantage into victory? And so what I'm trying to do today is to play some of these positions against Stockfish and see if I can actually close the game out. So in this position, we had just taken a knight as a result of the tactic, and you can look at the most recent tactics video and you'll find that tactic there somewhere. We've just taken this knight, and in response, Stockfish has now taken our pawn. So that is where we are joining this game. We have objectively a very good position. It's not immediately clear to myself about why it is immediately so good, but it is good, and we need to try and finish this off. I mean, it is clear why. It's because we have this extra bishop, but even with this extra bishop, it's not necessarily going to be an easy task. But let's give this a go. Clearly, we can take the pawn back. That gets rid of one of our double isolated pawns here, and it also just takes a pawn back. He's going to be able to recapture with the rook. I think the question there is, how do we continue at that stage? One idea might be then to put our bishop here, because that would attack the rook. And even though the rook can then move here to take this pawn, we can trade the rook for rook, and then we can even win this pawn. The center though there, really, this all opens up and these things all disappear. The queen becomes active. The queen becomes active, and our king doesn't have a lot of defense. It's got a lot of holes around it. So I wonder whether we might find ourselves being checked a lot there, maybe even into perpetuity in some cases, I don't know. But I wonder whether there might be an argument to not take, or if after he takes back, do we then play something like this? If we do, we're threatening to take with the rook. We're not threatening to take with the pawn, or we are threatening to take with the pawn too. So we could play take, and after he takes back, we could play this move. That could be quite nice. But let's say he just takes, like so. Well, perhaps then we can double our rook. Again, you see that it's kind of difficult here to make progress. It's kind of difficult to make progress, despite having this extra bishop. The bishop's doing a good job, and I think we need to use it to win this game. It's doing a good job in terms of pinning this pawn, but otherwise it is kind of on the side of the board. It's only looking at a pawn, and even if we take here, the pawn itself is defended well. We can't really get at the piece that the pawn is defending, so the pin's kind of ineffective anyway, and I wonder whether it might just be best to put this bishop on a better diagonal, on a diagonal where it has more scope and can combine with the other pieces in a more effective manner. So that might be the case. We might even, if we take, he takes like so. I don't think that's a bad start. The question is, how do we proceed? If we want to be very systematic and use the lessons of tactics here, we really need to think about forcing moves. So we don't have any checks in that position. We don't have any captures. We do have this capture, I suppose. But after he takes, well, we do have this then. And you see, this is interesting when you think methodically. It's not about inspiration, it's about methodical thinking. So if we take and he takes here, it's an even trade, pawn for pawn. If we take here and he takes, now we've given him a rook for a pawn. So extremely dangerous idea unless it pays off. And the way that it could pay off would be with a move like this, pinning the rook to the queen. One issue though is the rook can move away with check. And we can't bring that rook back, obviously. We'd have to move the king here by force. And then this queen can actually come in here with another check. And then we're forced here, at which point this rook swings over. And if I'm not mistaken, that's a forced checkmate. A forced checkmate if we actually go down this line. So no, the capture doesn't work. But after this and this, if we don't have any checks, we don't have any captures. We do have threats though. We can muster some threats, and this is one of them. Bishop b7, threatening to capture the rook. Now if the rook comes here, well then we trade a set of rooks, and then our attacked bishop comes up here with a tempo on the queen. I can't imagine that that can be too bad for us, so I'm not afraid of the variation where the rook comes to d7. But instead of the rook coming to d7, what if the rook instead transfers over and wins the pawn on e5? In that scenario, we could just trade rooks and then win this pawn. Then what sort of checks does he have? Checks and captures. Well, he has this check. If he plays that check, I can move here with my king. And there it does seem that I'm basically out of dodge. And I should then be able to hold. So I think that's going to be okay. Maybe one other possibility I could consider after bishop b7, if he takes this pawn, what if I immediately take here? I like this because it skewers the queen and the rook. He doesn't really have time to take this rook because I would take the queen. So I think there he would have to maybe take the bishop. But if he takes the bishop, I can take the rook. No, my rook is still there. His rook is here. So if he takes the queen, I can take, well, at the very least, the queen. So I think that works. I'm going to take. He takes back. I'm going to play this move. And if he takes, I just now need to decide between, I think, what are two decent options. I think I like this option. Because again, it's a beautiful skewer. It comes with a lot of tempo on this queen. So he doesn't have time to take this because I would take the queen. And then if he takes back, it's a queen and a rook versus a rook and a rook. Should be absolutely winning. Alternatively, if we take this, he takes back, then I take here with a tempo. He most likely brings this here and he's doubled things up. So I think I actually prefer this move. Now, what can he do? If he takes the bishop, like as I mentioned, I can either take a rook, which is already good for me, still have a tempo on the queen, or I can just take the queen and still have a tempo on the rook. So I think this is good for me. And the alternative is really, as we mentioned, this is good for me. Only other real alternative is that he moves the queen somewhere. If he comes here, well, I take this rook with a tempo on the queen and a tempo on the other rook. I think he has to move the queen somewhere completely else. Maybe somewhere like this, but even then I take, he takes, then I take. Look, I think this is a good move. Don't think I'm missing something big, but we'll see. This is Stockfish after all. So he's gone for this route, so I'm going to take this. And we're going to have a queen and a rook versus two rooks. Which won't be easy, but it is, I think, it is winning, but it's not easy. Particularly if we end up in a queen and rook endgame. That would be very interesting because you may have seen in recent videos I trained for, and I've been training for a bishop and knight endgame. So if I end up with just a bishop and a knight, I can still find the checkmate. But when it's just a queen and versus a rook, that's a very difficult one, and it's one that I'm not very familiar with. And you can see it may become a very handy skill to have, particularly if this kind of situation happens in a tournament. I would love to be able to confidently be able to deliver mate when I've only got a queen against a rook. Let's see what happens in this game though. We still have work to do. Our big advantage is the queen. I think that much is clear. But our queen's not doing too much at the moment. White's got this pawn majority. It's relatively immobile, however. So how can we get our pieces to work well together and create some threats? We don't have any checks available at the moment. We do have these captures, but they're nonsensical. And so therefore we need to come up with some threats. What sort of threats could we drum up in this position? I mean, everything is defended for now, except the rooks themselves. The rooks themselves are the only things not defended. So perhaps a move like this, which infiltrates further into his position with the queen, and whilst it doesn't have a direct threat, the indirect threat is something like this to attack the rook. And the rook would have to move either here or here, because if it moved anywhere else, we would also be attacking the rook behind it. So this move, it's not 100% forcing at all. And even if we come here, the fact that he can come here kind of makes things stale yet again. So maybe it's not such a big threat to actually get the queen here. Maybe what I'd prefer to do is threaten to trade off a set of rooks and be able to take back with the queen. So maybe this is a nicer idea. Maybe this is a nicer idea, threatening to bring a rook here with check and to hopefully force one of the sets of major pieces off. So what's he going to do in response to this move? If he attacks my queen, that's fine, we go check. And after he takes, we come back here, check again, and things are good. Okay, so if we come here, what if he just does something like this? Well, now he's battening down the hatches, and we can't play this move because he simply takes, we take, he takes, and he's now up a rook. So if we do this, we have to have a response to this, which at the moment I can't see, but maybe we could play something like that. If we bring the rook out to the f1 square, and now we're threatening check, he's going to have to come down here. Then we have this check. He brings the rook across. And then we can come back. I mean, it's not bad. It's kind of tricky. Look, I think we're going to have to take this one step at a time. I can't think of any better threats. And since there's no checks and no captures, I think this is the best threat I can come up with. So I'm going to do something called just trusting in the position. I'm going to play this with this is my threat, and after this, or this was another way that he could deal with it. That's a good move too. We have to try and find a way to proceed. Now we can proceed here. This is a check that's absolutely viable. Okay, and it forces the king back to one of these squares. We're cutting him off down this line. He could put his rook here, I suppose, but then we get to play something like this. And we're going to get one of these pairs of rooks off the board because it's going to be pinned. So I think this is the most natural move. There is also this check, but he simply takes. So I don't like that. Let's go with this check. And then we'll find a follow-up. So now we can actually put the queen here. Interesting how that's happened. By playing the most forceful moves that I could find, we've ended up in this scenario. But as I kind of mentioned earlier, I didn't really see how this was going to be so great. Now, one thing we could do is maybe put the rook there instead. And maybe in future we can swing this queen across and put a lot of pressure on this pawn. I think he'll always be able to defend it though, which is why these kinds of positions are really not easy. I think we're going to have to be content with making gradual progress. Now, if we come here, he does need to defend the rook. He can do it like this or like this. Or he can do it like this or like this. Note that in either case, he's going to end up with a rook on one of these squares. That's what he's going to have to do. So if he does that, can we proceed in some good fashion? It's kind of difficult, but maybe then we can play our rook to this e-file, threatening again to get this trade in. So maybe he would do it this way, so that, we can't play this. He would simply do this. So I think that would be the better move, okay? That would be the better move. How then do we proceed? How then do we proceed? Well, it's certainly not easy. I mean, we can maybe come here. Yeah, this is tough. So I'm gonna pause the video and come back when I've got an idea. Yeah, I'm still struggling, basically. So if I come here, I think this is the best move. Maybe then I can play rook d8. I'm never really afraid of check because I just take, and even though he takes back, my king gets active, and we've got rid of one of these rooks, which I think helps me. And also in this position, I come here. It's hard for him to ever really move this rook because if he does, then the other rook comes in. At the same time, I may be threatening to bring this rook here, and that could be nice, even if he just has to come here. I feel maybe I'm putting some pressure on him in those scenarios. So I'm actually going to do this. Can't be bad. Okay, he goes for it that way. He goes for it that way. So now I can't play this. But maybe now I can start advancing my king, which would allow me to play a move like this. So I think it's probably a good idea to get the king, moving at a certain point in time. Might also be good to put a rook on the 7th rank to prevent him from infiltrating. Although he can't infiltrate at the moment because I'd take this rook. If he infiltrates like this, however, that could be a legitimate move. So I'm going to put a rook on the 7th rank. Then I'm going to advance the king, threatening this rook now. So he has to bring it back. Now I can play this move. Because if he takes my rook, then I take his rook with check. And, then I can win all these pawns, basically. In the meantime, I'm threatening to take this rook, so he might have to move somewhere. I think that's a decent idea. Maybe I could do something like this as well, threatening, well, not much else. I'm going to do this move. It's quite forceful. All right, so now we've got one set of rooks off the board. He can't take because it's pinned, so he has to take back. Looks like we're heading towards this endgame, which is going to be really difficult to win. So he wants to infiltrate, but the moment he tries to infiltrate, I've got check, and I think my queen just becomes really active, so I don't think I'm actually so afraid of that. What I might want to do is push my pawns forward and, get something happening against the king side here, make the king weaker. That's quite difficult to do. If I try and get my own king active, he's got a check. I can come further up. If he checks me again, I can just come further still. So I think getting my king active actually makes sense. Just want to make sure I'm not blundering somehow. So if he comes here, I've got check. He moves. I come here. He can't take this at all. So I'm not so afraid of these ideas. Check this. Check this. Yeah, I think that's good. Let's activate the king. Okay, he's kind of sitting still for now. Maybe I can play a move like this because I hit the rook and I also hit a pawn. So that's quite, a tempting move. I do allow his king some more scope if I move my queen away though, but not really because I am threatening the rook. So the rook's going to have to move. Let's say he moves away with check. I continue to move up with my king. He goes here. Now I kind of have to come here to keep an eye on this pawn. He can't provide the check because I would otherwise take him. But, at the same time, I could just continue bringing my king up. And that could be, even nicer. Because if he does this, I just go take. He takes back. I come here and I'm threatening this pawn in a big way. So he's going to then be tied down. And when he's tied down, it's going to be a lot easier for me to round up the rest of the pawns. So I'm actually going to do it in this way. Keep bringing my king up. Keep bringing the king up. Here, I'll take once. Then I'll bring the king up again, threatening this. Yes, he does have that check there. All right, so we come back, threatening this now. And there you go. The game is lost. I can't bring my king anywhere because his rook cuts me off. And you can say bye-bye to the queen, and that's game over. It's not easy to win a one position, especially against Stockfish. So, nevertheless, if I can I take back some moves or something? I'd like to try again. How do I do this? No. It won't let me try again, but that's all right. I lost it. I think, here I didn't consider what checks he had. But that was a big blunder. That was a huge blunder. I thought that here he would have to come back. And that's a typical case of not considering what your opponent can do. Just thinking about what you want to do. I want to attack this pawn. He's going to have to defend it. Well, no. You got to think methodically. What checks can he give me? Well, here's a check. If you look at this check, you immediately see there's nowhere for the king to go except for here. And then from there, if you look at checks, it shouldn't be hard to see that this is a check supported by a pawn. My king has to move back again and you lose the queen. So that this is actually a losing idea. And had I seen that, maybe even here I would have played this move after all. I don't think there's anything wrong with this move per se, but certainly here you got to be aware of that sort of thing. I think here in this position, this move would make some sense. Maybe even this move, to be honest, because if he gives a check, you could almost block with the queen. Even if he takes the queen, you take a rook. If he pushes this pawn, you're going to capture it. And then it's this probably drawn scenario. This was really difficult. Let's try another one. I've got another one lined up from one of the puzzles yesterday. Oh, this is actually the puzzle streak that was still going. So why don't we try this one? Yes. Now, this is the puzzle. And I believe the solution was to threaten mate up here, and then to double back, take the pawn with a tempo on the rook. And let's now play this position out against the computer. Okay, so we have a very strong advantage. Black is now offering us a queen trade. Now, in this position, we both have two rooks, we both have two bishops, we both have a queen. I've got this extra pawn, and that's about it. So a queen trade should be okay. It does provide him with an isolated pawn here, but it also opens up this bishop. And I'm wondering whether this just might be a better idea, is to push my passed pawn, because passed pawns must be pushed. That greatly restricts his bishop. If he takes my queen, I don't care, I just take back. So I think this just gives him a problem to deal with. Okay, this was apparently a mistake. Of course, I didn't even consider my checks and captures, so got to be more careful, I'd say, in future. Let's try and consider some checks and captures. There are no checks other than this, but that's nonsensical. Captures wise, well, I can take the queen. He's likely to take with the rook to preserve the pawn structure. But in that case, I move here attacking the rook. Rook moves away somewhere. Then I move this with a tempo on the other rook. Rook moves somewhere. And then it might become a little bit hard to defend this pawn. So I might actually want to double up behind this pawn, potentially. Or I may want to play, if I'm not going to capture, is there any threats I can create? maybe some sort of, this kind of move might be nice. Specifically because it threatens to move the bishop away with a tempo against the queen and the rook behind it. So I think this might be nice. It's also nice in the sense that he is attacking this bishop twice, and I'm only defending it once. So bringing another defender in is also a very natural continuation here. Okay, inaccurate, but so be it. We get a few trades. And now he's attacking my bishop. Now, it's interesting that his bishop's actually doing a really good job of guarding this square in future. The most natural move here is just to bring my bishop back. Or perhaps actually to take his rook. If I take the rook, then this nice bishop has to move off its nice square. The downside is he also allows some more mobility for these pawns. So after takes and takes, then I suppose there is this move with my bishop so that I control this diagonal. I think I like that. Another mistake, says the computer. But I still have an advantage, so I'm going to do this. I want to control this square. I think it's an important square to control. Because one day I might want to put a rook there. Alright. That day may even be now. Because if I attack the bishop, it's most likely going to have to move. Maybe he can just defend it. So maybe I start like this, attacking the rook. The rook can't move here, so it's actually kind of forced here. And then I can play a move like this, force that sort of trade, but it does ruin my pawn structure. Maybe I want to get my bishop up here. Because that way, instead of offering the trade from here, I can offer the trade from here. And therefore, when he takes, I don't ruin my pawn structure. He has to take here, and I can take back with my rook. So maybe this. He comes here, then I come here. Could be nice. Or maybe just this immediately. And what does he do? The bishop can't really move. That's the beauty of having pushed this pawn. If he attacks this bishop, I just move back. This bishop doesn't seem to be doing anything too incredible. So I like this move. Again, inaccurate, but looks like we still pretty much have a nice advantage. He comes here attacking this. Now I think we go for this trade. After takes, I take back with the rook. He attacks the bishop, I drop back. The advantage is still there. So now we could advance this pawn, but it's very difficult for this pawn to actually promote. And in the meantime, the bishop is nicely restricted. He wants to play this move though. And that's a really good idea because my bishop's getting potentially strangled. So the moment he plays this, my bishop wants to come here. So it stays alive, essentially. He can't come there with the king, and until he plays this, his bishop's out of play. But even if he plays this and I come here, he can get his bishop here, I take, he takes. And I guess his idea is that his king's active enough, that his king's going to come here, his rook's going to come here, he's going to win this pawn, I'm going to take back, he's going to take back with his king. And then my only advantage is going to be the fact that I have 3 pawns here versus 2 pawns here. So if that's my advantage, maybe I should start playing. Maybe I should start playing on this side. Maybe I should start playing with a move like h4. And then you can consider following up if he plays a move like this with, you know, this whole sequence and then ultimately other moves, getting the king up, etc. So let's go h4. Another mistake, or an inaccuracy. We still have this nice little advantage, however. Okay. He's come there. I don't see that he's making any particular threat. So I can just continue on my merry way. Sitting on the position. So he's moving back. Let's move a bit forward. Okay, this is all fine. I think he's wanting to say he wants to take, but he can't. What he wants to do is he wants to push this pawn and not allow me this, but I think even that still doesn't work because I still can play this. So I think that's all still fine. That's all still fine. A bit of a waiting move here. But it's possibly a dangerous waiting move to step onto this diagonal, so I'm actually going to wait like this, which the computer quite liked. Okay, now I could consider pushing this pawn, but that just gives it to him, gives him the pawn. And again, I want to try and restrict this bishop as long as I can. Maybe I'm better off bringing this bishop back a little bit. Oh, what happened there? The appearance of the board has changed. Let me just zoom in a bit better, if it will allow me to. That'll do. That'll do. Okay, so he's maybe threatening this, actually, so we'll wait this way. So that after he plays this, I suppose we can just take. It is a pawn. Let's take. Now he's coming after this. And fair enough. Not much I think I can do about it. I can come here, and if he takes, then I can come here. And my idea is that I'm somewhat infiltrating with my king. If he goes back, I can keep coming forward. If he comes here, I'm getting into the position. So that's a nice idea. It's where you got to be careful, though. It's absolutely where you got to be careful. So let's calculate. King h3, rook g5, king h4, rook g7, king h5. Let's say look, I think it's all right. Let's do it. There's a bit of instinct, to be fair, but we got to get the king in there somehow, right? And we do also have to be careful after check. We go somewhere like this. He comes in here and attacks this, but we've also got the possibility to bring our rook back if we want. So still he's probably wanting to free up his bishop with this kind of move, but at the moment it still just drops a pawn to start with. Also to start with, we can attack his rook. And hey, why not? We can attack this rook again now. And that sort of forces him here. Or somewhere over here. Maybe this one, onto the open fire, would make a lot of sense. Alright, so we've got to be careful not to overstep the line. Could we play a move like this? He can still come here regardless. And then I can just come back here. He comes here. So I don't really love that he can come here, to be honest. So maybe I want to come all the way back. If he goes there, then I can come here. And even though after take, he takes the pawn, that was kind of the whole reason I started playing on the king side, was because I thought eventually he would take this pawn. Things would get traded. And then I can come back with the king and try and clear the path for these pawns. At the same time, his king's not too far off from potentially causing havoc over this side of the board. So I'll make it hard for him to get this pawn. I want to make it hard for him to get that pawn. Maybe I should play a move like this. And when he comes here, I come here, defending this pawn again. If he plays this move in that case, I can do something like this. He comes here attacking both of these pawns. And that's not so nice. So maybe after this, this, and this, I should be considering also what happens if my bishop drops to here. Because if he takes with his bishop, I take back with check. So let's say he takes with his king. My rook's not so great. My rook's really not that great, I feel. So if I come here, he comes here. And then I come here. At least he's got no real great infiltration squares along this file that he owns. And although he can come here and attack the pawn, if he ever takes the pawn, at least I still have the bishop. And in the meantime, I can try and make more progress over here. So you know what? It's what I'm going to try. It's what I'm going to try. Cover this square from him. He does go after this. But, okay. Let's continue on with the plan of trying to get something happening over here. Do I want to come here or here? Is there a difference? Or for that matter here? Ultimately, if I'm probably going to try and come to this square, it ultimately may not matter all that much. Now, I could come here, by all means, to protect this pawn again. But then he comes here, attacks my bishop, and attacks this pawn. So I just have to move the bishop yet again. Which I don't love. I could do something like this, threatening take, take, take. And also if he takes this, I thought I could take here, but no, I can't. Take, take, maybe I come here. Also, the moment he wins this pawn, it's now dawning on me that the moment he wins this pawn, his bishop finally has some freedom. So it may actually still be worth giving this pawn up. Except that even then he plays this, and after takes, takes, his bishop has freedom. So his bishop is going to come to life. Whether I want it to or not. Let's try and get a passed pawn. I think the way to do it is f3. After he takes, let's say take, take, and then g4. If takes, takes, we've got our passed pawn. I think this is the way we're going to do this. We could do this to start with. But let's just say he takes, I take back, he takes, I take, he takes. We don't have a passed pawn, so let's do this. Apparently it was a big mistake, but I still have a small, tiny advantage. Now, let's give it a go. It's all zeros here according to the computer. It's all zeros. Well, let's see if we can at least hold on for the draw. Now this bishop still has to go on 1, 2, 3, 3 moves in order to defend this. So I can go 1, 2, 3 in the time it's going to take him to get to the necessary square. So 1, 2, 3. And then I can just play something like this. And I'm going to get a queen, it would seem. Alternatively, he's got his king here. I come here, he comes here. I come here. He comes here. I'll just check him away. Or, you know, put my own king here. So I'm just going to continue along this path. Okay, 1, 2. That's a more efficient method of putting the bishop where it wants to be. So here, here, I still come somewhere like that. Maybe even something like this is a nice idea. So this, this with the threat of check and then take the bishop. So this, he has to deal with that threat, I would think. How does he deal with that threat? Probably just move the king out of the way somewhere like that or like this. Then let's say push, he starts pushing this and he's going to get a queen too. Got to be careful that after they both get queens that his king's not the one to then come and destroy me over here. So if I do this, he comes here. Or what if I come here? He comes here. I come here. Threatening check, check, take. Goodness me. It's just the way it is sometimes. Let's push. Let's push again. All right. That's a move, because if he takes, I get a queen with check and then come back and take. So let's play this. He has to move. Now, if we come here, he pushes. If we come here, he pushes again. I take this, he gets a queen. No, he doesn't because I take with check. So if I come here, he pushes, I come here. He takes, I take, he pushes, I get a queen. My queen comes with check. And now he's winning. What have I done? What have I done? Show me why I'm wrong. Probably for the reason predicted before. That is after, you know, these queens take place. And I can't even stop his queen anymore. I can't even stop his queen anymore. So why is it so hard to win these positions? And why do I do so well for a while? So well, quote unquote. You know, somewhat maintaining an advantage, but then also just it's a draw. But then all of a sudden it's totally lost. It's kind of an interesting pattern. But can we just go right the way back and let's just see how this is supposed to happen. So yeah, first things first, why didn't I just win an exchange? That might have made life easier. Okay, but I didn't do that. In, you know, the way that I played it, how should I have gone from here? Rook d1 it said was actually fine. Was there any big sort of evaluation change? So there's one. No, that's actually all right. This is all okay. That wasn't the greatest. So what's a better move here? Just push this forward further. All right. What's the computer going to do? It's going to give up a pawn. Or it wants h4 now, rather than say, man, the computers are hard to understand sometimes. Let's try one more. I think there was one more puzzle sort of thing that I wanted to finish off. So let me pause the video and I'll set this up. Actually, no, that was it. So it was an interesting exercise. It was really difficult, obviously, to beat Stockfish even when you have a winning position to take over from. What to take away from that? always got to be careful about checking what your opponent can do and starting with what checks they have, because that's what ultimately led me into a blunderous queen loss in the first kind of example game. And in the second example game, I kind of just got ground down. Even though it was a winning position, I couldn't find the winning ideas, so the winning advantage became a draw. And then in that drawn position, I think I kind of just got careless toward the end and a bit, I don't know quite the word I'm searching for. Lackadaisical, perhaps, where I just let it kind of not matter to me anymore. You know, like, oh, let's just see now what happens. Let's just push it, rather than concretely calculating. And I guess that might be something to do with being tired. And by the end of the game, you do get tired. So stamina actually matters. Stamina matters in terms of, you know, there's consistency. Consistency meaning if you play a game and it's a 35 or 40 move game, consistency means you play 35 or 40 good moves. But stamina, in a way, is what allows for that. Stamina is what allows you to be tired on move 38, but to be able to persevere through that and to be able to still maintain the energy you need and the concentration you need to be consistent. And therefore, stamina and energy levels is actually an important component here, which obviously the computer doesn't necessarily have to deal with. I mean, it has computing power limitations, but it's not a human being in the sense of its tiredness. But I think this raises the question of health and fitness, because that's, I think, where stamina and energy come from. That going into the tournament, I'm going to want to be in good shape physically. I could say mentally as well. A lot of the times, physical and mental health, you know, they go hand in hand. So I think there needs to be a bit of a fitness regime, and it's probably a good time to end this video, because I think it's time for me to go to the gym and get some physical activity. So that's what I'm going to do, and I wish you all the best. And perhaps I'll be back later to do another recording. This time it'll be a practice game against a person online, like a chess.com game. But we'll see. It's going to be dependent on how much time I have later on. Regardless, thank you very much. Follow along. We'll keep preparing for this tournament. It's less than or approximately 2 months away, and we'll see you soon.